watching WomanVision TV. It's where women talk. I'm Nadia Giordana, and I have a fantastic guest today, Judy Liautaud. She's here to tell us a very personal story. Let's go hear it from her. Judy, welcome. I'm glad you could make it today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, I'll bet.
I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Me too. And you have such a compelling story. And you and I are close to the same age. We grew up in the 60s, late 60s. I remember a lot of what the culture was like then. So it's easy to relate to some of the parts of your story. Tell us how it all began. Start telling me your story and we'll talk about that.
Oh, okay. Well, I wrote a book about my story, and it's a memoir, and it's called Sunlight on My Shadow. And so I guess the where do you want me to start? I mean, it's a big story.
I guess in the 60s. We'll start with the 60s.
Okay.
When you first got pregnant.
Okay, that sounds good.
And what all happened then. That had to be traumatic.
Yeah. Well, I was going to an all-girls Catholic high school, Regina Dominican, and probably the worst thing you could have done would be to get pregnant. And it happened to me. My boyfriend's condom broke, and I was so scared that I was pregnant. So I would, when I first missed my period, I was scared to death, and I didn't tell anyone, and I kept up the secret for 5 months.
Sure, it's going to go away, right?
Oh,
it's going to go away.
I hoped it would.
Yeah,
you know, I hoped it would. And finally, when I tied my uniform skirt together with rubber bands because my belly was getting bigger and bigger, but we wore uniforms so I could, we had blazers, so I could kind of hide my thickening belly. And then when the rubber bands couldn't hold anymore, I had to tell my dad and my parents.
What was that like? That had to be very painful or just difficult to even broach that subject.
I was so scared to tell them. I first told my sister, who is 20 years older than me. And she's been like a mom to me. And then I said, well, do we really have to tell Mom and Dad? And she's like, I think so. And so she told my mom, and then my mom called my dad and brought him home from work and said, there's a problem we need to talk about. And I think he kind of suspected because it had to do with Judy. And
all parents worried about that. They still worry about it, but at that time period, they worried about that.
Oh, I don't even think that they suspected it. You know, I was such a good girl. I never got in any trouble. They knew I had a boyfriend, but he didn't come around very much because I wasn't allowed to go in boys' cars, so I would kind of sneak over to meet him to get in his car and hang out with him. So, but when my father found out, he was outraged and very, very angry. Didn't we teach you anything? What's the matter with you? Don't you even have any sense? And he said he wanted me to have an abortion, and by then I was... Oh, that freaked me out because I could feel the baby moving inside of me. He didn't understand that I was really 5 months pregnant. So.
Well, and there really wasn't much in the way of abortion in those days either, I don't think.
No, it was before Roe versus Wade, but my father would have found a way. But yeah, it wasn't available. I didn't even, think of that. I just ignored the problem for as long as I could. And so then he decided he'd send me away to a home for unwed mothers. The doctor actually confirmed that I was pregnant, our family doctor, and said, John, there's places we can send her. Nobody has to know about this. We'll tell people that she has a kidney disease, and she'll just come back and go on with life, and have the baby and give it up. Yeah, that was how pregnancy was dealt with back then. Nobody was a single mom. Nobody was going to school pregnant. in high school. That was
No,
just
they
not
left
done.
school. I remember girls left school
Mm-hmm.
when that happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so then did you automatically right away go away, or how did that come about? And what was that like being there?
Well, first thing my dad did was took me to the motherhood store at the mall and bought me clothes.
Really?
And because and it felt so good to wear these clothes
Yeah.
that let my body out.
Yeah.
And then I remember coming downstairs and saying to Dad, not saying anything, but he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're showing," because I had hidden it so well.
Yeah.
And then I was home for maybe a week or less than that. And then they took me to some friends of the family that lived in this little bitty town, Watoma, was it called? And in Wisconsin. It was quite a ways away. And I was going to stay with this older couple and kind of hide out there until I could get a place at the home for unwed mothers.
Okay, yeah. Well, how old were you? Was there any consideration of getting married?
Oh, that's a good question. I was 16.
Okay.
And my boyfriend said, "Do you think we should get married?" And it was too big of a leap. I didn't think that was right.
Didn't feel right.
Yeah, and actually, if there was any way that I could just keep this all a secret, that would be the best scenario.
Yeah.
If I got married, then everybody would know. And, and
that's true.
but I wasn't ready. He
Yeah.
was already pulling away from me after he found out that I was pregnant, and we weren't like real tight. So, yeah, it wasn't an option. But my options were just kind of made for me. I didn't really think it out.
Yeah.
Nowadays, girls are able to make an adoption plan and think about all their options, but I was just led into this.
Yeah, I can
solution.
see that. And
Yeah.
was it 1967?
Yeah, I was 16, and then when I had the baby, I was 17.
Yeah, so that's pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty young. And so you went to did they call it an unwed mother's home? That's the way I remember them being called.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was called the Martha Washington Home for Unwed Mothers.
Okay.
And it was this old brick building in Milwaukee, outside of Milwaukee, in a town called Wauwatosa.
Oh.
And we were able, so I was at Helen and Ed's for maybe 6 weeks, and then I went to this home. And we were allowed to go out and like once a week or something and go to town. And so I'd go with my other pregnant friends. And one time we went into this bookstore, and this guy said to us, "We don't patronize your kind."
Oh.
And I was like,
Yeah.
What is he saying? I just didn't even comprehend.
Didn't even occur.
But he was kicking us out of the store. He wanted us to leave.
Yeah.
And so it was such a shameful time, and I understood what discrimination was.
Yeah, you
It
knew
was
what
an
that
education
feels
on
like.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How interesting. Was it overall? Was that place okay to be at for all things considered, or was it not so much?
Yeah, it was. They treated us. We got fed, and it was an okay place. They were nice to us. They weren't overly nice, but it told us that we could not make friendships, and that I would be called Judy L. So no one would know my last name.
That anonymity would be, I guess, helpful at the time, but a little bit hard.
Well, it was. It was so disgraceful that you didn't want the family name to get tarnished.
So it was the last name that they avoided, so that wouldn't happen.
Yeah. And then when it came time to have the baby, we would go up to the second floor of this same building. It was called the hospital floor, and the local doctor would come out. And so that's where I had my baby.
Was it predetermined then when you went to the home, was it predetermined that you would give up the baby? Did you have any, could you have changed your mind if you wanted to, or pretty much that was the program and that's was the expected end result?
Well, yeah, it was, I could have changed my mind, although I never considered it, but I remember I had a social worker, and she took me out to lunch, and she said to me, well, have you considered, like, keeping the baby or getting married? And I was so angry at her. I'm like, well, don't you even think I considered these things? Which I hadn't. But it was just like, I was on this path. This is what I was going to do. This was the plan, and I didn't want anybody questioning it or me having to validate or say why why.
It's like, bring up the questions, then I have to think more about it, and it's so traumatic to begin with.
Right, right. And so I signed the paper. She gave me the papers that would sign the baby away, and I think I might have had 10 days or maybe even 6 months to change my mind, but I never considered that.
So, did you know where your baby went? Did you know anything about her after that, or for how long?
Well, no.
And did you give her a name?
Yes, I gave her a name. I called her Helen because...
Did she keep that name? I mean, was that the name she was adopted with?
No, the parents changed her name.
Oh, okay.
So actually, the birth certificate is put in, the original birth certificate with my name on it as the mother, is put into a sealed vault, and a new certificate is made that has the adoptive parent's name, and they name the baby.
And their name.
So that makes it impossible to, very difficult to find your child if you want to.
Yeah.
But, you know, what was so interesting, Nadia, was I had spent 9 months just wishing this thing would go away. And it just felt like a lump in my belly. It was a total inconvenience and just horrible. You know, I had self-loathing and just hated it.
Primarily because of the culture in our society at that time. I assume that was a big part of it.
Yeah, and it was so, well, I was so ashamed.
Yeah.
And then when the baby was born and I heard her cry, I just wanted to hold her. And it shocked me, and I wanted to comfort her, and I wanted her to be in my arms, and I couldn't.
You couldn't.
I couldn't do
did
it.
They
I
take
didn't feel
her
like
away
I had
right
the
away?
right.
Yeah.
They put her in. Well, first of all, I had to ask them, is there a boy or a girl?
Oh.
It was just like, it was just hushed. Nothing's being said.
They didn't tell you?
No.
No.
And they said, it's a girl, and they put her in this crib on the other side of the room. And while she was wailing, I just wanted her so bad. And I thought, well, why? Why do I want her when I wished for 9 months that she wasn't, didn't exist? And then I would go to the nursery and look at her. And we could have gone in and picked her up if we wanted to.
Yeah.
But I was afraid if I did that, maybe I'd never be able to let her go, because I was so attached to her. She was so beautiful.
How many years passed? Because I understand you've met your daughter. Did you find her, or did she find you? How many years passed before that came about?
Well,
You have 2 other daughters now since, but...
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I didn't want to think I wanted to care what happened to her or where she went, but after she was born I did, and I could never forget about her. When she was 26 years old, I hired a searcher, private investigator person.
So you found her.
Yeah, to find her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the way they find her is they match the time of birth in that county at that hospital with a birth certificate. And so then they had her name, and so then I could find her.
So that part of the birth information remained accurate enough that you were able to do that.
Yeah.
And then then how long was it after you found her that you contacted her?
Well, I contacted her right away. I asked someone else to call her. I just couldn't bear to. It was like one of these search angels to call. And she said that she'd always wondered about me, and she would contact me. Then the person gave her my information. And then I waited and waited and waited, and she wasn't contacting me.
So she was afraid too.
I guess so. And then I finally sent her a letter, and then finally I did get to meet her. That was probably 8 months later. And walked in the room, and I just wanted to say, "Oh, baby, you live," and hold her and hug her, and she was so beautiful. But of course, I couldn't do any of that. I was just like the store clerk to her. I wasn't maybe a curiosity, but she didn't, of course, miss me or have love for me like I did for her.
Yeah, I think it is
strange.
different for the mother. Yeah, very interesting. And then, did she ever meet her sisters? Does she have other brothers and sisters in her family? How did that shape up after you met? Was there any ongoing contact?
She does have two children, and she has met my kids, my daughters. But she came to my wedding when I got married to Joe.
Nice.
That was 10 years ago, and she was a big curiosity. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're Karen," and so I see her. We're Facebook friends. I see her once in a while. I would love to have a more ongoing relationship with her, but she is reserved. She said that her mom always worried that I would come back into her life and steal her away. And so I think to protect her mom, or maybe she doesn't care that much either. But so we keep in touch.
Yeah, there is I think an awareness of what the other mom must be feeling like, a sense of threat there, because that changes everything. When they entered into that adoption way back when, things were kept secret and stayed secret.
And that was the promise.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, and so am I stepping on her toes by coming back into Karen's world? And at first it hurt me deeply that she didn't understand that I didn't want to be Karen's mom, but I just wanted to know her. But I understand. An adoptive mom told me I was afraid of the pull away from, of my child towards the birth mom, because that's a strong genetic,
it is
biological pull.
There's it's built into us. It has to be that way.
So I understand that.
Well, we're going to take a pause.
Okay.
And come back and talk about your book a little bit.
Okay, great.
Judy, okay, now tell me, what else is it that you'd like to say about the writing process?
Well, I had mentioned that it took me 4 years to write the book. And at first I had decided that I wouldn't let anybody read it because it was so tender and raw. And after I got finished with the book, I realized that I didn't want to cut anything out, because I was telling my story, and even though I was vulnerable, I had to be honest. Otherwise, it wasn't. It didn't have as much meaning to me.
No, and what's the point? It's so important to get that part out, the honesty, sure.
And so as a result of that, I just really forgave myself, that teenage little girl, and I understood why I did the things I did.
No, you were just a kid.
Yeah, and so it changed my life writing that book. I am a huge proponent of women or anyone who has secrets or things that they're shameful about to write about them, or else talk to somebody about them, because when you bring it to the light, there's a huge transformation, and it makes you more able to be real. When you're trying to hold a secret, you're always like, you don't really realize it, but you're tentative in everything you do.
It has power over you, and it loses that power, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly
I think
true.
so.
So writing the book was a great process for me.
So it made a big change in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, now you've got the book. You have a website.
Yes, it's Sunlight on My Shadow.
That's right. Okay. And we might have caught that earlier, but I wanted to be sure to have that. And if viewers want to get more information about you, they can. Is it sunlightonmyshadow.com?
Right.
Yeah.
And the book is available on Amazon if you're interested in
Sure.
doing it.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And Judy, thank you.
Thank
so
you
much
for having me.
Yeah, this was great. It was so nice to hear your story.
Thanks.
to show you my favorite way of making green beans for a company dinner. It's called green beans with balsamic vinegar and bacon. Now, the first thing that I do is clean the green beans. Really, that's just a matter of washing them and then taking the nubby end off. That's all you really have to do. You don't need to take the little pointy ones. They're soft. So clean a pound of green beans and wash them and dry them. I use 3 slices of bacon, which I fried. Now, I did these ahead of time so you wouldn't have to watch me fry bacon in a pan. But 3 slices of bacon, that's not really all that much when you have this many green beans, and this is going to be for several servings. Now, one thing that I do though is blot away a large amount, more than half, of the grease that's left over in the pan from this bacon, leaving just enough to flavor the green beans. You don't need large amounts of bacon fat these days. And actually also, now, if you really don't want to use bacon, you can use olive oil, and this dish is maybe a little more Italian by doing it that way, but every bit as delicious. So if you want to go super healthy, use just the olive oil, but I do like it when I cook it this way with the bacon. So this is the pan. You can see it's not all that greasy anymore. There's just maybe a tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons in there left over from that. And that's where I had fried the bacon. Now I'll get this pan going. There's not a lot to this dish. I'll get that hot. And the only other seasoning then will be a little salt and pepper, and of course a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, which is about all I have left in this bottle, so it'll be just the right amount for this dish. The green beans have been parboiled or steamed. They go into the pan. Pan's nice and hot. Toss in the chopped bacon. A little salt and pepper. And we'll get those coated and hot. Because when you pre-cook the beans, which you need to do, it only takes a minute or 2 to put this dish together by getting them hot again, coated with the bacon grease or olive oil, and then splashed with roughly about a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. Oh, it adds such a dimension of flavor. Now, this can be served cold, hot, or at room temperature. It's good every one of those ways. I think room temperature is my favorite. And that's it. Take a look. Let's turn this off and dish it up and take a closer look at it. Here it is, green beans with bacon and balsamic vinegar. This is especially good put out on a buffet table because it can be served at room temperature. You don't have to worry about how hot or cold it is.